space for free. So we are very excited. We love supporting Blackheart. They're the longest running LGBTQIA bar in the Twin in St. Paul.
So is this one recorded or is it
safe space, be yourself. Nerd Nite, everybody.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so as I said, we are always looking for new presenters. Whatever your topic of interest is probably something you would make for a good talk. You'll see we typically eclectic selection. You can talk to us. You can email that email to nerdnite.com, or you can message us on Facebook. And just come talk to us. We'll put that back up later on so you can see it again.
We're
already filling up for the next few months, so come talk to us right away if you've got a good idea.
Next month's presentations are on David's stomach. There they are, Tin Curling and Acceptance Therapy. Unless something changes, that's what we've got coming up next month. But this month, right now, let's give some rounds of applause for our three presenters. We're going to have some Ancestry work come up here in a second, so give her a round of applause for Molly. And then the Real Housewives of Ransomware, let's hear it for Pam. And then we're going to round out our evening with Ed Wood and a very long title by Nixie. Let's give Nixie a round of applause. Let's bring back Molly to start the show tonight.
Thank you. Okay, hang on. Here, I got hands. Okay. Hello. Hi, my name is Molly Budke. I am going to present on Ancestry work without Ancestry.com. Yeah, let's do it. So, Nerd Nite likes you to give your qualifications for presenting on a topic. My qualifications for this topic is that I have ancestors. So do you. I have been doing this work for between 10 and 15 years. I also want to really stress that I do not think that there's a barrier to this work. I think anybody can do it. I think you can do it from a lot of different approaches. I'm going to talk about a lot of those approaches. So y'all are also qualified to do this work. I want to be really clear about that. This QR code will take you to this slide deck. I also have it at the end. So just want to flag if you want a copy of it, that's where this QR code will take you. I hope. I think it works. Okay, I'll pause real quick. Great. Okay, so this is my ancestry going back, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 generations. It is color-coded by the country of birth. That key is on the side. Some things that I want to point out here. This is very, I'm European. I'm a Euro-nut, yeah? So the way that I approach this work, I recognize is pretty Eurocentric. And that is a lens with which I approach this work. I try to be pretty critical, pretty aware of that. But it is a thing that is true about me. I heard somebody out there say at sea, I also think this is really cool, that Anton Gilbertson was born at sea. I feel real bad for his mom, but that's neat. This is also a thing that you can also make through one of the tools that I'll share if that's a thing that you want. So some things I'm going to talk about. Some considerations of ancestry work, types of ancestors, why I think it's worth doing, why not use Ancestry.com, and some other tools for research and connection. So, some considerations. First of all, power, privilege, whiteness, and colonization. I recognize my ancestors are white. They are from Europe. That means I come at this with a certain lens. It means that I have a lot of privilege in that the records of my ancestors are available and digitized. And not everybody has access to that. I think there's some really great tools for folks who are not white. I know about some of them and not about others. Happy to talk more about that. But it is the lens that I come at this with. I also want to recognize that my ancestors all got me here through stolen land. I think it's really important to name that. And to name that those diasporas were folks running away from things and also traumatizing others. Trauma and disconnection are really important in this work, kind of knowing that you, if you get into Ancestry, are going to see the trauma that was enacted on the people that you come from and the trauma that they enacted on others. Those things are going to show up, and that's something that's important to consider before you get into it. And boundaries, right? Our ancestors are always, I think, still living, and our ancestors are also the folks that come after us, and it's important to kind of have boundaries. Also, if you're like me and think that like ghosts are part of this, it's good to have boundaries with ghosts. So, types of ancestors. This is my framing of types of ancestors. It's based a little bit in some framings that other people have made. But I separate ancestors into 4 types, though there's certainly overlap. Familial, being the individuals and groups that make up your family history. For me, this includes biological or ties through legal or cultural connection, like adoption. Place-based ancestors, the individuals and groups that have lived on, cultivated, or purposely moved through the space that you hold. Cultural, the individuals or groups that have built a history of a culture you identify with. This can include like family, ethnic groups, but I also think, as somebody who is queer and disabled, I have ancestors through queer and disabled communities, right? Like leaders of those communities are also my ancestors. And non-human ancestors. Primarily, I think about domestic and wild animals, but also objects, structures, cryptids, myths, anything else that holds its own presence. And then I think of types of research in terms of storytelling, records, and spiritual. There's obviously a lot of overlap, but I'll talk about things in terms of each of these types of research. So, why do ancestry work? I've got a couple reasons. This list is certainly not exhaustive, but my reasons are, it's a really satisfying puzzle. The records in particular, figuring a thing out, feels really good. I find it really grounding to understand better how I got here, why I'm here. I think part of that understanding is also an increased empathy for the loss of connection that other people feel when they are forced out of a homeland or forced away from families. I hope that I had that empathy before I started this work, but I think it certainly has increased through doing this. I also have found a lot of places for ancestral healing. I think we live in a time when many of us are able to recognize that historic trauma impacts where we're at, and there can be healing to find in doing this. And ghosts are spooky and fun. So, some of the spooky and fun ghosts that I have found through doing this work. This is the grave of my great-great-grandfather, Irvin Smith, who was born in 1847 and was 18 in the last year of the Civil War. He was conscripted as a musician. That was a cool thing to see for the Union. So that was fun. These are my great-great-great-grandparents, Herman and Anna. They were from Germany, and they came from Germany and landed in Fergus Falls. This is them and their cows. Also my ancestors. And this is Cinnamon. Cinnamon was my mother's childhood dog. I feel really thankful to have had a maternal grandfather who was a prolific photographer. He was not a good photographer, but he was a prolific one. Cinnamon is the dog that taught my mom to love dogs, and my mom taught me to love dogs, and I consider Cinnamon one of my ancestors, and I'm really thankful for how I got to where I am because of the impact that she had on my line. So these are some fun things that have shown up for me. Okay, but like how, right? So, based on types of ancestors and based on types of research, I have separated things out. This is also not an exhaustive list, but these are a handful of access points to do different types of ancestry based on which type of ancestor you're looking for and what type of records you want to get into or what is available to you. Some things that I want to point out here. If you feel like if your special interest is dinosaurs and that is ancestry work to you, I'm going to support that, right? If something is ancestry work to you, I buy it, I support it, I'm here for it. Anything that connects you to sort of how you got here, I think can be defined as ancestry. Personally, I like records work through a platform I'll talk about in a minute. I do a lot of tarot for ancestry. I find my cooking and gardening connects me a lot to the folks who came before me on my land and cooked and gardened. I also think bird watching is ancestry, right? Like you stand on a piece of land and you recognize the flight patterns of creatures that have traveled back and forth on that land for many years. That's also ancestry. So why not use Ancestry.com? I've got 3 reasons for you. It's owned by Blackstone Inc., which is an investment firm that does not give a shit about your privacy. So that's worth knowing if you're going to engage with Ancestry.com. It's also a project of the LDS Church. It is what it is. I don't want to give my money to them, personally. And there are free alternatives. I think that the cost-benefit analysis on using Ancestry.com simply isn't there. If you have used it in the past, I'm absolutely not here to shame you. I want to be really clear about that. But if you are thinking about doing Ancestry work and considering Ancestry.com, I would really recommend that you not. Some alternatives. So I want to be really clear. The LDS Church has a monopoly on records in this country. There's no getting around that. FamilySearch.org is a free version of Ancestry.com. It takes maybe 10% more work, but you can get the benefit without paying anything. I think that's valuable. I do recognize that when I use it, I am still giving my data to this organization, but I'm at least not giving them my data and my money, right? Both of those things together would feel really bad. FindAGrave.com is also owned by the Ancestry folks, but is also free and is a registry of a lot of grave sites across the whole world. NewspaperArchive.com is not owned by Ancestry.com, but it is also not free. Newspaper archive projects, if you go to the National Endowment for the Humanities website, you can find a lot of localized projects. Some states have more than others, but Wisconsin has a better one than Minnesota, but depending on where you're from. There's a lot of local historical societies and libraries that can support this work, and a wide variety of localized projects. One of my favorites that I want to call out is a site called They Had Names, which is specific to Georgia, but is a digitization of a lot of records of Black folks in Georgia pre and post Civil War. They've done some really cool work. Projects like that exist, but you have to kind of dig based on where your folks are from. So that's the bulk of my presentation. A couple of additional offerings I want to give out. If you are somebody who's into tarot, I find this tarot spread to be really kind of a lovely entry point to the work. If you are somebody who likes an altar, I've got some stuff here. A template spreadsheet that I want to call out. There's a link, once I get back to the QR code, you can get to this link. I find this a really helpful place to start if you want to do records work. I like the puzzle of this so much, I will do this work for other people for free. If you want me to do that for you, got to start with this spreadsheet. And I've got some other stuff here, and I think I'm missing a slide. No, I'm not. That's okay. That's what I got. That's it. So this is the same QR code that was at the beginning. If you want to link to the slide, if you want to be able to link to the spreadsheet, you can do that through this. My email is on the first slide if you want to get in contact with me.
Actually, I'm going to ask the first one because I actually think you have a lot more that you can share that's just not on the PowerPoint. So I guess, could you share an example of something, a mystery you found and how you dug into it? Just share a couple of the steps broadly, here's where I would start, here's where I would go with that, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. So if you are going to use a records-based approach, and if you do, I would really recommend Family Search. I think you can do records-based without engaging with the LDS Church, but it means kind of doing everything yourself and not being able to connect to the work that other people do. A thing that I find really helpful is you plug in what you know, you connect to things that other people have created, you can kind of go back through the records. a tip that I would give if you are going to do that is to look at the siblings of the people in your line and the children of those siblings to get information kind of backwards through the line. That is a way that I found a lot more information than I would have if I had only focused on kind of the folks that will show up in your family tree, right? Obituaries are a really great resource, especially for like the most recent generations, to find kind of names of siblings and things. And if you were going to use Family Search and you were not finding people and needed to put them in yourselves, starting to put like the children and siblings of folks in can unlock a lot of things. I do want to be honest, like I find these puzzles really satisfying. They can also be really fucking sad. So that's a thing to kind of keep in mind and hold space for yourself while you go through it. Yeah. Okay, the question is how easy or hard would it be for somebody to do this if they were adopted? It depends. I think it depends on what information you have. I think it depends on what approach you're hoping for. Part of the reason I wanted to include a bunch of stuff that isn't records-based is because I recognize that that's not available to everybody, and that I don't think that should be a barrier to doing the work if it excites you. Yeah, it depends. It depends how much information you have. I think if you're, so the spreadsheet that I have, what I ask the people when I do this work for them is to give me as much information as they have about the most recently deceased person in each kind of line of their family. If you have that, I don't think it would be any different than doing this for like somebody who was not adopted. But if you don't have that, it gets more complicated. It's not impossible, but it certainly is a complication. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
You mentioned that you wanted to share with us the tool that you use for that visualization. Is that the spreadsheet or is that?
Oh, I'm sorry. So yeah, the tool that oh no. Can you back me up? The tool that I use for that spreadsheet is Family Search, which again is owned by Ancestry, but it is a free version. It's a much more crowdsourced version, so there's more work done by people, but also there's a lot of Ancestry nerds out there. I am like far from the only one, and so a lot of it is already, like a lot of things are already set up in there. So that's the tool that I used to get this. They also do a version of this, like you don't have to color code by country, you can color code by other things. But I also, like each of the people in this map has a page. Many of them have photographs from the most recent generations. Some of them have a lot of information, some of them have very little. It's very spread across the board. You know, you can see like Samuel Smith, all we know is that he's dead, right? We don't have dates for him. I'm pretty sure he might be a vampire. They don't keep records for that. They don't have access to. But generally, right? Yes. Last month's presentation on vampires was great. Go back in time if you want to see that one. Yes. Yeah.
Not so much a question, but a statement. I do big data.
Yeah.
This is like very big data on
Yeah.
Ancestry.
Yeah.
And I just want to answer the other question. I helped in doing this for a very large family with adoption. And there is one sort of straightforward way, but it comes with cost. If you don't mind doing the Ancestry DNA kit, be careful. There are little qualifiers that you can somewhat protect your data a little bit, but it is what it is. But that is a way that you can do a first, like we were talking about, kind of start
Yeah, so the comment is that if you are adopted, if there's a disruption in access to things that you could do DNA through either through Ancestry.com or through there's a couple other platforms that do it. I specifically left DNA off of this slide because I have some very strong feelings about it, and I really don't want to shame anyone who uses it. I was sort of hoping someone else would bring it up so I could talk about it in a non-shaming way. I think that if you are going to give your DNA to a third party, you need to really consider the cost-benefit analysis, for lack of a better word. If there's a disruption in your family, such as adoption, something that disrupts you from a family that you want to connect to, I think that the benefit can very much outweigh the cost of doing that. If you have access to records, I don't think it does. I think you need to be very aware that giving your genetic material to a third party that might have a privacy policy, but we saw it, like 23andMe shut down, right? Like people who use 23andMe, that privacy policy is out the door. Your data is not, your genetic data is not protected. I don't want to shame anybody who uses it. I think that there can be value if there's a disconnect and you want to kind of, that it is a way to get around that. I also just would really recommend that you make that choice carefully.
100%.
Yeah.
One more question.
Yeah. Yeah, in the back.
Why does the LDS Church own everything?
They got to it early. They got to it early. They bought up all the records in America, and they continue to support. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they use records from dead people. I've heard stories that they baptize dead people to make those people then members of the LDS Church. I haven't done a ton of research into that, so I don't want to cite that as a really firm fact. But yes, they got in early. They also have some interesting ideas about purity that I think influence this, that are also a reason that I try to, while using their tool, not give them any money.
Okay,
I don't know. They're very mysterious. That's part of the problem. I'm generally pro-mysterious things, but not when it comes to that particular religion. All right, that's my presentation. I love to talk about this shit.